Hello everyone, today I'm here to talk all about the You TV show adaptation. If you didn't know, You by Carolyn Kepnes was just adapted to a television show that was originally on Lifetime, but now it's moved over to Netflix, or maybe it was on Netflix all along and they just aired it on Lifetime first. I don't know the logistics with it, but I just know it's on Netflix now, so that is how I watched it, so in case you're interested in it. It's on Netflix. It is 10 episodes long, I believe, and it is based around this first book, You, in the series. There is a second book called Hidden Bodies, which I have not yet read, and it does not focus at all in season 1. So if you don't know what You is about, I'll quickly tell you what the book is about, then I'll delve into the adaptation, and then I will delve into spoilers within the adaptation. You is basically about a stalker named Joe. See, you're reading the book through his eyes. You're seeing the world through Joe's eyes. Joe works at a bookstore, and in one day walks this beautiful girl, and you hear his internal monologue of how she's beautiful and la da da da, and basically he becomes obsessed with this girl named Beck, and he stalks her. He stalks where she lives, what she does on social media, who she hangs out with. Anything about Beck that he can find out, he does. He breaks into her house. He finds a way to weave himself into her life. And this book is not a love story. If you think it's like a really twisted love story, yes, it has that involved in it, but it's mostly about Joe and the really developmental of Joe, of how kind of twisted and a sociopath he is. The further you get into his mind, the further you become enamored with him. And this book really is chock full of horrible people. There are books that you read and you dislike some characters. For the majority of the part, there are some characters you really connect with that you really enjoy, and it makes the reading experience enjoyable. You is not it. You, literally every character you're not gonna like. The main character Joe, the love interest Beck, Beck's friends, everybody in this book. There's maybe one or two characters that have some redeemable qualities, but for the most part, everybody that is in You is just horrible. So you find yourself really questioning yourself because you're starting to connect with Joe, the pivotal bad person in this whole book the most, and you're rooting for him, and you're like, wait, why am I rooting for the bad guy? But it's because everybody's written so horribly that you just literally can't help it. So this is like a really it goes to the psyche of a person and what they think is love and what they think is right and wrong and what they would do for so-called love in their eyes, but it's really not love. It's just a really scary, insane story. What I love about You is the fact that everybody is horrible in the book. Like, everybody's horrible, but also the fact of the whole narrative is like he's talking to you. Like Joe is talking in the book like you are Beck. Like you are the one that he wants and things like that. And it gets really creepy. The audiobook is especially creepy. I recommend if you try to read this book to listen to it because it is really amazing. It ups the creep factor even more so. I read the book in October. I really enjoyed it. If you want to hear more of what I thought about it, I'll link a review right up in here. I reviewed it with a couple other books, but I really enjoyed it. So I was very much anticipating the show, but I didn't know if I was going to watch it because I didn't know how it was going to do. But I'm really glad I watched it because I really loved it. I thought the adaptation was amazing. I thought the people that they cast for the characters were amazing. I thought they kept the overall heart of the book. There were some definite and noticeable changes, but there was no changes other than one that I was really upset about. I was okay with all the other changes. I thought it really stayed true to You. Like, it's kept with the book for the most part. Like I said, there was a few noticeable differences, but overall I'd say if you were a big fan of the book and are skeptical about the show, I would watch it. I think it stays true and stays par with the show. Just so you know, You is a very sexually explicit, a lot of cussing, a lot of graphic violence, and a lot of graphic thoughts in it. So just be forewarned before you even watch the show or read the book, just so you are aware of it, because it's, it's a lot. I understand that. Reading it for me was a lot. Watching the show was a lot, but I became enamored with the show. I binged it in like 3 days. I couldn't get enough of it. I knew what was going to happen, but even so, I was still very invested in the whole show. So overall, I would give the show a 4.5 out of 5. Like I said, it's one of the best book-to-show adaptations that I've ever seen. I don't watch a ton of book-to-show adaptations, but this one I thought was amazing. Like, first of all, Penn Badgley as Joe, phenomenal. I've known him when he was Dan on Gossip Girl because I watched Gossip Girl, but I thought he played a phenomenal Joe. Like, he got the creep factor in there. He also got the whole appeal of Joe, because you're reading the book, you're like, I like Joe, but I don't know why. But when you watch the show, you can really see, like, oh, Joe, you're like you're an appealing guy, but you're just so twisted and messed up on the inside. And I feel like Penn Badgley got that great. And I loved how they kept the internal monologue as well in the show, like in the book. Like when he sees Beck, you hear what he's thinking, like, ooh, hello you, walking into my store. And you get to that throughout the whole show as well. I thought he did an amazing Penn Badgley. As far as Beck, I forget the actress' name, I apologize. I think she did a good Beck. One of the few changes that I really didn't like was how likable Beck was on the show. I don't think she was 100% likable, but she was much more likable and much more of a redeemable character in the show, more in the book. And I know that's like controversial to say because you want a character to be more likable. You want a character to have redeeming qualities, but it wasn't that way in the book. Like Beck, like you maybe started liking her at the beginning, and the more you saw of Beck, the more you're like, she's the worst. And that's just not, like, I don't want to say that like female to tear another female down, but she just has really horrible and like not a lot of redeeming qualities. So the fact that they made her a little bit more likable, a little bit more understanding, like I understood why they did that with the show, because they wanted you to connect with Beck, wanted you to empathize with her, but I didn't love it because I feel like you shouldn't feel that way for Beck. You really shouldn't, because in the book she's just like has these awful thoughts. She just has like no, like, I don't know what to say. She's not the best in the books. I think the one that played Beck did a good job. Yes, I found her believable. I found her, equals part horrible and like maybe a little smidgen of, redeemable, but overall I thought she did a good Beck. I forget her name. Shay Mitchell was a great Peach. Like, you hated Peach because she was the worst, and she played that just as well as Peach. John Stamos as Dr. Nicky, I didn't love. I feel like we should have gotten a little bit more of Dr. Nicky, just because I feel like he was a little bit delved into more in the book. There's a more course of action that happens with him in the book. Beck's friends I thought were okay. Ethan I thought was a great match. Blythe I thought was a great match. I thought everybody in the show was a good match, but I'd say my favorite for sure is Penn Badgley as Joe, because you is quintessentially all about Joe. That's the character you're with 100% of the time. That's who you spend the most time with, so understandably so. I thought Penn was great as Joe. Again, not to get any spoiler warnings, I really enjoyed the adaptation. I cannot wait for season 2. I knew season 2 is gonna follow Hidden Bodies, which is the second book in the series, which I have not yet read because I have just heard horrible things about it, honestly. A lot of people say just to skip it, that it doesn't really encompass the I don't want to say the greatness that is you, but just it doesn't encompass what you is all about. So I was gonna skip it, but then when I heard they were gonna follow that in season 2, I'm like, I should probably read it. So I'm definitely planning to read it. So in case you are interested in the You series and want to keep up with the books, just know that the first book takes place of season 1 of You, and then second season is all about Hidden Bodies, which I think they're shaking things up too. So I plan to read it very soon. Hopefully a review will come up, but either way, I really enjoyed the first season. I thought it was a great adaptation. I can't wait to see what else they do with it. Very dramatic. It's very fast paced. You're invested from from episode 1. You're just enthralled in it and you can't stop watching it until you complete it. So overall, 4.5 out of 5. I loved it pretty much. So going into spoilers, so if you have not read the book probably, and if you've definitely not watched the show, do not watch any further because I don't want to spoil it for you. But if you have, please continue to watch further. I'm just going to talk about some changes that I liked, didn't like, and the ending and things like that. So just know from here on out, spoilers will be had. So the biggest change in the whole show, probably didn't even need to put in the spoiler section, but oh well, here we are, is there's no Paco, no Ron, and no Claudia. They are not at all in the book. They are made up for the show. And I didn't hate that change. I found it to be quite odd when I first saw these people. I'm like, who are these people? Why do we have such interest in them? Like, they don't exist in the book. But I think they made them, especially Paco, for sure. I think he was written to the show to show more humanity in Joe, and that there is maybe some redeeming qualities of Joe that you don't get to see in the book. So they maybe made up Paco to maybe show what Joe was like when he was younger, and Joe's really kind of steering Paco in a different way than when he grew up, especially what happens with Ron and how Joe killed Ron because he didn't want Paco to end up like himself and things like that. So I mean, I understood why they were in the show to, I think, show Joe's humanity and also show like what could happen to Paco with all these things that Joe has done, especially with the Beck ending. Oh my gosh, Paco plays a huge part in that. But I don't hate that change. It's not a bad change. I don't think they'll be at all in the season 2 because they moved away and we're moving away to California. I mean, I didn't hate the change. I didn't love it, but Paco was a great character and I was really rooting for him and I was very worried about him at times, but I think it was just there to show a little bit of a different side of Joe that we didn't see in the book. Another huge change is at the very end of the show is that Candace is alive and not dead after all. I am actually okay with this change. I feel like I really wish they would have kept it in the book, honestly. I think that would have been an even bigger twist at the end because I think with the book, you know inevitably what is going to happen and you're like, you know what's coming, but you're kind of hoping it doesn't. But if they would have kept the Candace part like from the show to the book, I think that would have thrown like for a loop I wasn't even expecting at all. I don't think anybody would expect that. So I like that they kept her alive in the show. And I think it gives another big mystery to go on. So not only do we have a big mystery of, is Joe gonna get away with all of these murders? We have a mystery of, Candace is alive. How is she alive? What is she going to do? Because she knows what Joe does, and she's one of the only living people that knows what Joe does other than Paco. And Paco is like not going to say anything because Joe has saved his life. So I liked that change. I liked also how they really talked about Candace a lot in the show. In the book, we get snippets of Candace. You get to hear flashbacks of how they met, not how they fell in love. And you really didn't get to read about their ending of the relationship other than when he killed her in the book. Like, that's the only part you got of Candace. So I like the fact that we had an episode, or like a half episode, where Beck was really trying to find Candace and where she was and if she was alive or not. And I was genuinely very interested in that whole Candace dynamic. So that's what I want to know. I also, you don't know about Joe. Like with the book, you know that he's killed Candace, like, and her brother, and I think the guy that she cheated on him with. I think those are the 3 people he's killed. I don't know. But you don't know. Was there more before that? I don't know. You don't know that. I think in the show, it pretty much said that was the guy that Candace cheated on him with was the first person killed. But I mean, the book, I don't think you know that. At least I can't remember. I may have forgotten. I like that we have this whole other dynamic to take with the Candace route because I want to know more about her. And I like that change, honestly. Like I said, the one change I really didn't like was the fact that Beck was more likable in the show. You guys know I've said this a lot already. Beck was just horrible in the book. She like did things after thing after thing that was just horrible. The way she was like she was with Joe, but she was cheating on him with daughter Nikki, and then she would be with other guys. Like, Beck is a character that just wants to be loved by everybody, but not be tied down to one person. Like, that's how she is, honestly. I don't know. You could do a whole freaking video about Beck and the dynamic and the psyche behind her and why she is the way she is, of how she looks for love in all the wrong places, and she looks for validation. And is that because the way she grew up, and is that why she is the way she is? I don't know. I just don't like Beck at all. So they made her a little bit more likable in the show. And another change they had is they definitely had Beck and Joe more together in the show. In the book, they were together for like a hot second before things like were done. Really a time when they were actually a couple, and the show, it's elongated much, much more. Understandably, because I think if they were only together for one episode, you would be like, what's the point? But it's not a change I hate, but I understand why they did it because, like in the book, they were together, like, I don't think I'm wrong. I think I'm right when I say they weren't together very long. It was mostly him watching her, and there was a time when he was away from her with Karen Minty, and then he was back with her. Like, that was the actual relationship part, and it was like very, very brief. Other than that, they weren't ever like really together. So that's a change. Beck, you don't get to see Beck's death on screen, which I'm okay with because the show is already graphic enough as it is, so I didn't want to see another death. Like, good lord, with the whole Benji thing. Ugh. But with Beck's death, you don't really get to see much of it. Especially Paco changed. There's a huge ordeal with that. Paco could have saved Beck's life, but he didn't because of what Joe did for him with Ron. So that's a whole nother thing. Like, that poor kid is gonna have to live with that for forever because he knows that Beck is dead because Joe killed her. Like, he knows, and he knows that he had a big part in it. So I don't know if he's gonna come to play the second season with that because I can't imagine what that's gonna do to him internally. Good lord. So, I mean, I think that's all the spoilers I have written down for it. Overall, like I said, I really enjoyed the show. I thought it was phenomenally done. I thought it was well produced. Cinematography was great. Music's great. I can't wait to see what next season is going to do, and I can't wait to read Hidden Bodies. I don't think I'll like it, but I can't wait to read it and then watch the second season of it to see if it pars well with it. So overall, love the show, thought it was great, definitely one of my, love the show, thought it was great, definitely one of my favorite book-to-show adaptations I've ever seen. So I would love to hear your thoughts. Did you watch You? Did you enjoy it? I would love to know also if you've read the book and watched the show, what were your thoughts on it? Or if you've only watched the show, are you interested in picking up the book? Either way, hopefully you guys enjoyed this, and let me know your thoughts and opinions about the show down below. I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye.